as most of you probably know, this is Ron DeSantis on the left. He announced for president, and he did it on a Twitter space with Elon Musk. So as most of you know, Elon Musk is the owner of Twitter. So this is like a transparent attempt to pull in like moderates or people, Elon fans, people who fancy themselves moderates but really aren't that moderate at all. They're more right-wing. So I want to listen to the entire thing, like the whole breakdown of the presidential announcement, the conversation they had. It's about an hour long. From my understanding, I think that Twitter failed and the entire Twitter space dropped when they started because Twitter sucks. Because Elon fired like 3/4 of the staff and just started unplugging things when he got there, basically. Things that he needed for this thing to operate. And, as a result, it falls apart. So, anyways, during Ron DeSantis' announcement, Twitter fails, and then they come back online, and this is how it starts. So we're going to start from the beginning. And while we listen, I'm going to play some Breath of the Wild, too. It'll just be in the background. It shouldn't bother you too much. Let's give it a listen.
All right, I think we're broadcasting. Man, I think we melted the internet there.
No, Twitter just sucks. That's all.
Yeah, that was insane. Sorry. We actually doing this from David Sax's Twitter account because it looks like doing it from mine basically broke the Twitter system.
Oh, totally. Doing it from yours broke the Twitter system. No, you just ruined Twitter is all. You just ruined Twitter. That's really the problem here.
Anyway, thanks everyone for joining. We're incredibly excited to announce if you want to have Governor DeSantis on with us with this historic announcement, and then look forward to a live Q&A from the audience. So, with that.
Yeah, I mean, so Governor DeSantis, are you there? Can you hear us? I think you broke.
I'm here.
Excellent. I know. I think you broke the internet there. We had over 500,000 people in one Twitter space.
Oh man, I was really hoping to take this guy out with that that little thingamajigger there, but what can you do? That's a shame. Okay, well, do it the old-fashioned way then. Anyways, so DeSantis is saying that he did his best. Wait, let's just step back. Listen again.
I know. I think you broke the internet there. We had over 500,000 people in one.
Look, you're repeating the same joke somebody already told, okay? You can't do that. You have to tell your own brand new jokes. Elon said he broke the internet at the beginning.
Twitter space, and it was growing by like 50,000 a minute. So congrats on breaking the internet there.
Well, yeah. You can
Okay, that's the third time they told the same stupid joke. Come on, guys. Pull it together, please. I'm begging you.
We try some, new things. You're gonna.
Yes.
It's adventurous. So.
Yes.
Well, you could try some new things. Sometimes be adventurous. Yeah, that will lead to failure sometimes, and that's how you get to success is failing sometimes, right? Except when you go to the Twitter headquarters and start unplugging stuff, all right? Then it's your fault. Then it's what you did. So I don't want to hear, oh, this is just because we were experimenting. No, it's because you guys screwed up. It's because you guys suck at, running Twitter. It's because Elon sucks at running Twitter. And, you get just a few people in who want to watch this thing, and suddenly everything falls apart.
But I think the value here is actually really high for people to hear directly from presidential candidates and to answer a Q&A live, and you can get a sense for how a candidate really is, and where it's not just canned speeches and teleprompters. It's in fact, you can tell by the some of the mistakes that it's real. So, with that, I guess I should turn it over to.
Okay, so he just spent the first 5 minutes of this stupid town hall thing that they're doing on this Twitter space, explaining why Twitter sucks now, and now he's turning it over to this presidential candidate that's going to announce his candidacy. My God, dude, these people are just embarrassing.
Well, let's see. So, yeah, Governor, there's been a lot of speculation over the last couple of months about your plans. I understand that you may have an announcement to make. We've got, I think, a record audience assembled here. Probably the biggest room that's probably ever been assembled online. What would you like to tell them?
Well, I am running for president of the United States to lead our great American comeback. Look, we know our country's
to lead our great American comeback. Okay, interesting. So Trump says, make America great again. And DeSantis says, I'm going to lead us to a great American comeback. Yeah, that's super creative and totally not at all like what the other guy said. And for that matter, what the other guy said isn't like what the other guy said. I mean, Donald Trump just ripped his his slogan, make America great again, ripped it right off from Ronald Reagan. Let's make America great again. It's like pitiful, dude. And now Ron DeSantis has come up with like a new a new interpretation of this or whatever. It's just straight up embarrassing.
Going in the wrong direction. We see it with our eyes and we feel it in our bones. Our southern borders collapse. Drugs are pouring into the country.
Okay, the southern border is no different now than it was under Trump. There is no difference. Okay, no difference in border policy. Yeah, there's more fentanyl being caught at the border, from my understanding. More fentanyl being caught means less fentanyl getting into the U.S. Do you ever knock that one around the noggin? Genius? God, I'm in angry mode now because I was talking about winning a copyright battle against some shithead right before this. So I got to chill out. I apologize, guys. I'm going to chill out. I'm going to take a breather. I don't like swearing. I certainly don't like insulting people. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that guy that insults people. Even Ron DeSantis. So no more swearing. No more insulting. I'm going to be nice. And you know what? If there's an honest assessment of something regarding Ron DeSantis, I'm going to say it. Ron DeSantis sucks. I can say that, and I'm comfortable saying it's not an insult. So let's step back and give an honest response one more time.
We feel it in our bones. Our southern borders collapse. Drugs are pouring into the country.
You are incorrect, good sir. Border policy is no different now than it was under Donald Trump.
Our cities are being hollowed out by spiking crime. The federal government's making it harder for the average family to make ends meet and to attain and maintain a middle-class lifestyle. And our president, well, he lacks vigor, flounders in the face of our nation's challenges.
I mean, in what way? Flounders in the face of our nation's challenges? How? Lacks vigor? What do you mean exactly? I mean, give me details here. Tell me what you mean by this. I think Biden's fine, but you know what? I don't really care about Biden. You know what I care about? I care about Biden's administration. All the people under him. It would basically be the same as a Kamala Harris administration, by and large. Dude, how am I supposed to get up there? What's that? That doesn't look good. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. I don't know what that is, or was. Ooh, but I do know wind when I see it. Okay, I'm going to be able to come up and fight this guy now. Anyways, what was I saying? I think I was saying I was saying, by and large, the administration really is no different between like between like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. It wouldn't be any different because they'd hire the same people. It would all be exactly the same. When I like vote for like a presidential candidate or whatever, really what I'm voting for is an administration more than anything, right? Dude, how am I supposed to reach that guy? He's like way up there. This doesn't make any sense. Am I supposed to just wait for him to come down or what? Yeah, I guess I'm just going to hide behind this wall, wait for him to come down, and hope that he doesn't hit me with that stuff. So anyways, yeah, I don't really care like if Biden is out of his mind on whatever. Something that I've come to find when it comes to like presidential whatever is that presidents can be the stupidest, most incompetent person alive on planet Earth and still do the job just fine. After Donald Trump did his whole presidency thing, I came to find that literally anybody can do the job. Literally anybody. Literally any human being can do the job. And they're perfectly fine. So, complain all you want about Joe Biden being, like, mentally not with it or whatever. I disagree with that. I think the dude is fine, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think it's all propaganda against him. But even if Biden was completely out of his gourd and just, like, not mentally with it anymore, okay. Like, I'm here for the administration more than anything. I really could not possibly care less. I don't care about Joe Biden. You know what I care about? I care about, like, all of the people surrounding Biden and his administration.
He takes his cues from the woke mob. I don't think it has to be this way. American decline is not inevitable. It is a choice. And we should choose a new direction, a path that will lead to American revitalization. We must restore sanity to our nation.
Oh, and this is the guy to restore sanity, right?
This means embracing fiscal and economic sanity. Stop pricing hardworking Americans out of a good standard of living through.
Wait, how is Biden doing that? I missed it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand here. Like, I'm just trying to be honest. How is Biden pricing people out of, like, a good standard of living or whatever? In fact, didn't Biden, like, set out to make things better with the inflation thing specifically? I mean, I'm just trying to get it straight here. Please help me out.
Inflationary borrow, print, and spending policies, and please embrace American energy independence. This also means replacing the woke mind virus with reality, facts, and enduring principles.
This guy suddenly cares about, what was it?
Replacing the woke mind virus with reality, facts, and enduring principles.
He suddenly cares about reality, facts, and enduring principles. Right. Totally. Absolutely.
Merit must trump identity politics.
Merit must trump identity politics. Merit must trump identity. I mean, he's giving a bunch of platitudes right now, which is kind of what I expected. But I want to understand. I want to really think about what he's saying here and try to, like, break it down and analyze it, right?
Must return normalcy to our communities. America's a sovereign country. Our borders must be respected. We cannot have foreigners pouring into our country illegally.
Okay, that is not happening, really. I mean, there are refugees, people who are at their lowest point in their lives because they have nothing. They have nothing. And they are escaping war-torn areas right now. So, yeah, we have refugees pouring over the borders, people that are coming from countries that, you know, were kind of ruined by the United States by and large. That's not the same as people pouring over the border just because they want to or whatever.
Our borders must be respected. We cannot have foreigners pouring into our country illegally by the millions. We cannot allow drug cartels to poison our population with fentanyl.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, fentanyl is a big crisis right now, but a lot of the fentanyl is not coming over the border. It's coming from ports of entry. I can't actually speak to where the fentanyl is coming from. Like, back in the day, Huntington, West Virginia was the opiate capital of the United States. It had more opiates per capita than, like, anywhere in the world or something crazy like that. It was even featured on John Oliver as, you know, the opiate capital of the world or whatever. It was bad, like bad, right? I knew where the opiates were coming from at the time. There's a place called Kermit, West Virginia. It's a town of maybe 2,000 people in the middle of nowhere, right? You get to Huntington and you start driving until you hit the woods, and then you keep driving for about an hour and a half into the woods until the road turns from asphalt to gravel to dirt to nothing, until to a trail that a deer made, basically. Then you hit Kermit, West Virginia, right? And Kermit, West Virginia, like I said, about 2,000 people or so, somewhere in there. I don't remember how many. And interestingly enough, Kermit, West Virginia was getting, I forget how, like 10 million or something OxyContin. Like the one pharmacy in Kermit, West Virginia was getting 10 million OxyContin sent to it per month or some crazy thing like that. And from there, all of the OxyContin, which is basically heroin. It is heroin. OxyContin is heroin. Feels exactly the same, works exactly the same on the brain. It is heroin. So anyways, that's where most of the OxyContin was coming from. The rest of it was coming from Detroit. Now, after a while, feds kind of picked up on this and started outlawing OxyContin. And that's when the heroin started coming in. So where did the heroin come from in Huntington, West Virginia? Well, in Canada, codeine is perfectly legal and over the counter. And as it turns out, you can convert codeine to morphine. And you know how heroin is made? By taking morphine and mixing it with vinegar, dead serious, morphine and vinegar, and putting it in an oven. That's about it. So Canadians were buying codeine over the counter and doing a complex conversion from codeine to morphine. That one is not easy to do. And then they were taking that morphine and turning it into heroin. And they were using Detroit as the hub because all of the codeine was coming over the border, from Canada into Detroit. And from Detroit, it was going to Huntington, the hub, of course. That's where all the drugs are coming from back then. Now, I've gotten out of the drug world since then. I have no clue where they're coming from now. But one thing I can tell you, it's almost certainly not the cartel. And claiming something like blindly without having any idea who or where this stuff is coming from isn't helping anybody. This is very obviously just Ron DeSantis's attempt to basically garner support against people in favor of the drug war, which is kind of sad. The drug war hasn't helped anybody with anything.
Public deserves safe communities, and law and order must be maintained in American cities.
So he's just doing a Gish Gallop now of things that he wants people to hear. He's obviously appealing to Trump supporters. He's not appealing to moderates.
And have inmates running the asylum, and we must reject attacks on the men and women of law enforcement. We also must reestablish integrity in our institutions. This includes the military. I'm proud to be a Navy veteran, an Iraq veteran.
Oh, yeah, I know about that one. I don't know if you guys have heard this story about Ron DeSantis, but he famously oversaw the torture of people in Guantanamo Bay. He was actually there officially to tell the people what they were and were not allowed to do legally. Like, what are you legally allowed to do torture-wise? Are we allowed to shove a feeding tube into these people's nose and force feed them things as a form of torture? Is that legally allowed? Ron DeSantis was the guy that made the decision. Yeah, I think that's allowed. And that's what they did. All the while, Ron DeSantis standing in the corner laughing about it. You know how we know this? One of the inmates that was there that experienced it came out and spoke out about this. He told us the story. It does not get more disgusting than Ron DeSantis. So let's hear that one more time, Ron.
This includes the military. I'm proud to be a Navy veteran and Iraq.
We know all about your Navy service.
Veteran, and I revere our services, but when revered institutions like those in our military are more concerned with matters not central to the mission, whether it's global warming or gender ideology and pronouns, morale declines and recruiting suffers. And you need to eliminate these distractions, and we need to get focused on the core mission. We also cannot have true constitutional government.
Dude, okay, look, this is like an aside, but why did they choose this picture? I'm going to try to reenact this. It's like, I don't know, it's like he's sticking his tongue out, right? Like, it's like he's saying, God, what letter is he even trying to pronounce right now? I don't know. Is this like a sound? I think that's the sound he was trying to make in this picture that he's got here. Why did they pick that picture? It's terrible. Sorry, just a little aside.
Government, if the most significant issues are decided by the whims of unelected bureaucrats rather than the people's elected representatives. Reestablishing integrity in our institutions means we must reinvigorate our constitutional system by returning the government to its rightful owners, we the people. No social or economic transformation without representation. Truth needs to be our foundation. Common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. And in Florida, we proved it could be done. We chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder.
Again, this is all like, you know what's valuable about listening to this? It's valuable to understand who he's pandering to. It's valuable to know who he's trying to get. And everything that he's saying right now are standard Republican talking points on the far right. He's trying to get Trump supporters. So let me explain Ron DeSantis' strategy, in my opinion. He knows he's not going to win. He knows he's not going to take the presidential nomination in 2024. It's not happening. He knows that, right? But in my opinion, what he's doing is trying to set himself up to grab the furthest right of the furthest right nutcases in 2024. Oh, check this out. There's like a whole thing. I'm sorry, not in 2024. Check it out. There's like a whole thing here. Sweet. I was actually planning on building a little system, so perfect. There's stuff to do it. I'm sorry, I mean, he's setting himself up for 2028. He's setting himself up to be a nominee when the time comes. Like when Trump's time is over, DeSantis wants to take the position of, presidential nominee or whatever. He wants to like take the mantle or whatever. He wants to take over Trump's role eventually. DeSantis knows he's not going to win. He knows that. He knows that this is Trump's time, not his. And he can see that like clear as day in the polls, if nothing else, right? But he's pandering to Trump supporters specifically so that in 2028, maybe his time won't be passed. Look at Bernie Sanders in 2016. It was his time, right? Everybody wanted Sanders in 2016. It was Bernie Sanders' time to run in 2016, but not in 2020. There's a time for some people. And DeSantis' time might just have passed in 2024. Like when 2028 rolls around, it's possible that he just won't have a shot after that in 2028. That's a possibility. So he knows he doesn't have a chance now. If you look at the poll numbers, his poll numbers suck, but he's doing everything he can to get his name out there, not attack Donald Trump, not say a negative thing about Trump, just make it clear that he basically is Trump, except the competent version that knows how to do things in a psychotic way, basically, a controlled psychosis. So, in my opinion, DeSantis knows he's going to lose. His whole goal here is to make it seem as though he is Donald Trump, basically, and maybe get some campaign donations for the next go-around. That's my take on it. Oh, wow, I forgot to put the wheels on the correct direction. Yeah, I put the wheels on all backwards. Oops. All right, I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to change the direction of this puppy right here, and that'll do the trick. All right. Anyway, let's keep listening to DeSantis basically try to prepare himself for a 2028 run effectively.
We held the line when freedom hung in the balance. And we're thriving as a result. Florida is the nation's fastest growing state. We're number one in net in-migration.
Okay, I don't know what any of that means, and I don't know that that's even true. None of that sounds true. But, far be it from a politician to lie. Like, they lie constantly. So, yeah, I mean, doubt everything you hear from these people. Like, literally every word out of these people's mouths. Don't trust it, unless you look it up directly.
Number one in new business formations. Recently ranked number one in education. We have a 50-year low crime rate and one of the lowest tax and debt per capita in America.
One of the lowest in tax and debt. In tax debt per capita, whatever. Well, that's because Florida doesn't have a state tax. Of course. Does that surprise anybody? Really? That shouldn't surprise anybody that they have a very, very low tax debt rate when they don't have tax. Of course they're going to have a low tax debt rate. I'm really wondering what I can do with these lasers. Like, I've seen some people do some really cool things with these lasers, and I'm going to try to build something really cool with them. I don't know. Maybe I can't do anything with him, but I'll give it a shot. We'll see. We got a little group of guys here. We're going to try to kill him with these lasers. You can build a tank with this, actually, and it's pretty cool. So anyway, let's keep listening to Ron here. Old Ronnie.
But we also understand governing is not entertainment. It's not about building a brand or virtue signaling. It is about delivering results. And our results in Florida have been second to none. We can and we must deliver big results for America. I pledge to be an energetic executive that will take on the important issues. Biden's pursued inflationary policies that are hurting working people. We will reverse those.
Wait, what? What things specifically? What are you talking about? Are you just saying whatever it takes to get Trump supporters on your side? Because that's honestly what it seems like right now. What specific things did Biden do that made inflation worse? Please tell me. Give me one thing. I'll take one. There's nothing. He's full of it.
Policies, and we'll build an economy where working Americans can achieve a good standard of living. Biden's opened the southern border and allowed massive amounts of drugs.
Okay, Biden hasn't opened anything. Border policy is no different now than it was under Trump. So, yeah, sorry. That's just nonsense. But he knows that the whole border policy thing appeals to Trump nutcases. So he's going to lean into that. That's really the strategy that's being revealed right now.
To pour into the country. We'll shut down the border, construct a border wall, and hold the drug cartels accountable. Biden's embraced medical authoritarianism, such as unconstitutional COVID vax mandates. We will ensure that those violations of liberty can never happen again.
COVID vax mandates. Suddenly, Ron DeSantis cares about COVID vax mandates and stuff like that. That's really interesting because, first of all, there were no COVID vaccine mandates at any point ever. There was a COVID testing mandate that you could be exempted out of if you chose to get a vaccine. Not the same as a vaccine mandate. Nobody anywhere in the country ever had a vaccine mandate. For what it's worth, Ron DeSantis has an absolute nutcase as his Surgeon General of Florida, I think is what it's called. Dude's name is Ladapo, I think. Something Ladapo? Let me just show you. Okay, I got to give you a little bit of lead up to this one, right? So these things are all connected. Just follow my train of thought, all right? Ron DeSantis is talking about vaccine mandates and COVID policy and things like that, right? Okay, so we're about to listen to a woman named Sherry Tenpenny talk about COVID. You'll understand in a minute, okay? Just bear with me. Just listen to what Sherry Tenpenny has to say. This does relate to DeSantis.
Because right now we're all kind of hypothesizing. I mean, what is it that's actually being transmitted that's causing all of these things? Is it a combination of the protein, which now we're finding has a metal attached to it? I'm sure you've seen the pictures all over the internet of people who've had these shots and now they're magnetized.
Oh my God. She says people are magnetized now when they took the COVID vaccine.
Pictures all over the internet of people who've had these shots and now they're magnetized. They can put a key on their forehead, it sticks. They can put spoons and forks all over them and they can stick.
Oh my God, dude, it's so funny. No, all of that's fake. That's all completely made up, 100%. Like, none of that is true. There were not people sticking keys to their foreheads after they got the vaccine or whatever other nonsense. It's just completely fabricated, okay? So that's Sherry Tenpenny. She's famously basically the equivalent of a doctor in... Like, genuinely, she's actually a doctor. And I guess she got her doctor's, or like, it's not MD. It's the equivalent of an MD or something. She got it back in like the 70s or the 80s or something. And I don't know, it seems a little bit outdated to me. That's just my take on it. So anyways, she decided to throw her hat in the ring of COVID misinformation and spread the idea that there are actually... Like, the vaccines are actually making people magnetic. Seriously, magnetic. No joke.
Because now we think that there's a metal piece to that.
No, who is we? This is called weasel word. There is no we here, okay? There is you. When you say we, it's assumed that you've established, a person. Like, you've established a subject of a sentence already. But she didn't. She never established the subject of a sentence. She just starts going around saying we. Who is we?
They can put a key on their forehead, it sticks. They can put spoons and forks all over them and they can stick. Because now we think that there's a metal piece to that. There's been people who've long suspected that there was some...
Here's another one. Here's a good example of weasel wave. There have been people who have long suspected... Who are these people that you're talking about right now? Which ones? What are their names? Give me their names specifically.
Sort of an interface, yet to be defined, an interface between what's being injected in these shots and all of the 5G towers.
Wow, okay. So 5G towers are connected to the vaccine somehow. Interesting. All right. Okay, I'm with you. Again, this all routes back to Ron DeSantis. Let me show you how. I mean, she gets crazier, that woman does. Ron DeSantis hired this guy on the right. Dude's name's Ladapo, Joseph Ladapo, to be his Surgeon General, the Surgeon General of Florida. And apparently, Sherry Tenpenny is... Ladapo's and apparently Sherry Tenpenny is like Ladapo's biggest fan or something like that. I don't know. Why is he even in conversation with a complete conspiracy theorist like this, like Sherry Tenpenny? Not only that, but we found out recently through a news article that Ladapo altered data on like some studies that he released. He released a study that basically claimed that the vaccine is unsafe for children. And it turns out he just straight up lied on the study. He lied. He made things up. He twisted the facts. Isn't that fascinating? Listen to his conversation. This is the guy that DeSantis picked to be his Surgeon General during COVID. Listen to his conversation with Sherry Tenpenny here.
There's something special about people who were willing to stand up for what they believed was right.
Oh, really? So I guess that means you believe the whole key thing too then, right? That people were sticking keys to themselves and what do you call it? Like spoons and knives and whatnots? Is that what you're trying to tell me right now? He's saying Sherry Tenpenny stood up for what she believed in. Like, give me a break, dude. This is embarrassing. This is a Surgeon General of Florida, a scientist that apparently alters data and lies on like in medical research.
Even when everyone around them was saying otherwise. There's something very special about that. And there's also something very inspiring about that. And you're one of those people. People who did that are the reason why there are more people today who are standing up and saying things that aren't fitting in with mainstream narratives.
So anyway, the point here is that Ladapo, like this guy here, Ladapo, the Surgeon General of Florida, the guy that Ron DeSantis personally picked to help Florida make it through COVID, that guy is a fan of Sherry Tenpenny. You know, the same person who said this back in the day.
The more shots you get, the more you destroy your...
I'm sorry, let me rephrase. You know, the same person who said this back in 2022, early April 2022.
The more shots you get, the more you destroy your immune system, and the faster that happens. And it's anticipated. The German data says...
What German data? Where are you finding this German data? Who wrote the German data? Weasel words, all of it.
That by the end of 2022, every fully vaccinated person over the age of 30 may have the equivalent of full-blown vaccine-induced immune-suppressed AIDS.
So, Sherry Tenpenny, respected by Ron DeSantis's Surgeon General, the guy hired to help him be guided through the pandemic. Sherry Tenpenny believes that I was going to have AIDS from getting vaccinated. Let's see, how long has it been? 6 months ago. I should have had AIDS 6 months ago. By the end of 2022. This is a joke. Ron DeSantis is a joke and doesn't deserve the time of day, let alone a Twitter space where Elon Musk is gonna, pump him up and talk about what a great guy he is. Just disgusting, dude. Anyway, let's keep listening to Ron DeSantis talk about all the things that the MAGA nutcases want to hear.
Biden's allowed woke ideology to drive his agenda. We will never surrender to the woke mob, and we will leave woke ideology in the dustbin of history.
So about the whole woke thing, Ron DeSantis was forced to define the word woke because he did a court filing. He was suing some school, something or other. I don't even remember now. Anyways, he was basically forced to define the word woke, and here's the definition that he gave. Effectively, anything that backs up the idea that systemic racism or systemic bigotry exists. So the idea that, or the belief or the acceptance that systemic bigotry exists. That's what, quote unquote, wokeism is. So Ron DeSantis sitting here talking about like woke ideology is literally just talking about scientifically factual things. There's just like, it's a scientific fact that, you know, there is systemic bigotry, always has been in the United States since the very beginning. So, you know, this whole woke ideology, complaining about it or whatever, like you can complain about it all you want, but it is what it is.
Biden's also politicized the military.
Really, the point is he's trying to get moderates with the whole woke ideology thing and Trump supporters, sounds to me. He thinks the woke ideology thing is going to work to his benefit.
And cause recruiting to plummet. We will eliminate ideological agendas from our military, focus the military on the core mission, and we will reverse the poor recruiting trends. Finally, Biden's weaponized the power of the administrative state to advance his left-wing agenda. We will reconstitutionalize the executive.
Wait, how did he do that? And what does that mean? Reconstitutionalize the executive branch? What do you mean by all of that? Those words meant nothing except Biden bad. That's basically all it meant, what he just said. Like, this is complete nonsense.
Branch, and we'll bring the administrative state to heel. Now, you can't do any of that if you don't win. There is no substitute for victory. We must end the culture of losing that has infected the Republican Party in recent years. The tired dogmas of the past are inadequate for a vibrant future. We must look forward, not backwards. We need the courage.
Dude, everything he's saying is an empty platitude, and like none of it makes sense.
Courage to lead, and we must have the strength to win. And to voters who are participating in this primary process, my pledge to you is this. If you nominate me, you can set your clock to January 20th, 2025 at high noon, because on the west side of the U.S. Capitol, I will be taking the oath of office as the 47th President of the United States. No excuses. I will get the job done.
Not going to happen. He's very obviously just attempting to build his name recognition and build his reputation among the far right so that he can run again in 2028 and actually have some kind of a chance, like any chance whatsoever. That's his goal. That's why he's doing this, in my opinion.
Now, these past few years have given me a new appreciation for the fragility of our freedoms. I never thought I would see things in America that we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic, but our founding fathers were keenly aware of the fragility of freedom. When they framed our Constitution, they came armed with having studied the history of every republic and the history of mankind, and they noticed that all of those experiments only had one thing in common, and it was this. Every single one of them had failed. And so they knew it fell to our country, the United States of America, to determine whether people could really govern themselves. Could we have a society based on the idea that our rights are God-given, not government-granted, and that society functions based on the rule of law, not the rule of individual men?
All of those things are correct. He is correctly assessing the way that the founding fathers kind of viewed it, even with the thing about our rights being God-given and not government-granted. The idea behind that statement in the Declaration of Independence, the letter that they sent to King George to say, go heck yourself, basically. The point behind saying our rights are granted by God was to say that they're not granted by government. That was the point. Like, it wasn't about whether or not they believed in Jesus or whatever. Like, they were coming here for religious freedom. A lot of the people were. America was built upon the idea of religious freedom, by and large. Like, people wanted to be able to practice their religion however they wanted outside of having a state religion. So, they were hesitant to include any kind of religious mentions of any sort in anything for fear that it would turn into another state religion situation, and maybe they're on the wrong end of that deal, right? So the mention of God-given rights, the point of that was simply to point out that our rights don't come from government. They are not granted by government. Government doesn't grant me the right to free speech. I have the right to free speech. And if government comes in, like if I'm standing outside New York City, Times Square, if I'm standing on the side of the sidewalk there, and I'm talking about atheism, and the police come in and stop me, prevent me from talking about that, that isn't, that is the state taking that right away. If I'm just standing out there talking about atheism, that's not, that's not government granting that right to me. I have that right. That's just what it is. I have the right to stand out there naturally, whether government likes it or not, because government didn't grant me that right. Now, back then, there was a whole thing about God. Like, they didn't understand that evolution was a thing. Evolution didn't really even exist at the time. No, the concept for evolution didn't exist. So nobody really had any other ideas aside from, God. Like, we must have been created by somebody. Was it the Christian God? Probably not. Was it this God? Was it that God? Like, who knows? Most of them were deists. Like, okay, somebody probably came in and sparked everything into being and then left. But, they were comfortable saying God-given rights because they wanted to make the point that it wasn't something that was granted by government. That was the whole idea. So what Ron DeSantis said here is actually accurate. Everything that he's said here is correct, pretty much. It's just he's repeating a lot of platitudes and ideals and beliefs that have been spread by legal scholars and intellectual minds for many, many generations.
And that society functions based on the rule of law, not the rule of individual men. And when Dr. Benjamin Franklin walked out of that convention, he was asked, did you deliver a republic or a monarchy? He said,
a republic if you can keep it. Yep.
United States of America to determine whether people could really govern themselves. Could we have a society based on the idea that our rights are God-given, not government granted, and that society functions based on the rule of law, not the rule of individual men? And when
right, so the rule of law, that means no man is above the law. That's what that means.
Dr. Benjamin Franklin walked out of that convention, he was asked, did you deliver a republic or a monarchy? He said, a republic if you can keep it. They knew freedom didn't run on autopilot. They knew each generation would have a responsibility to.
Right. I think that Barack Obama famously said the moral arc of the universe bends toward justice. I think that Obama said that. I could be wrong. But maybe it was something that Martin Luther King Jr. said. You know what? I need to find out who said that. Okay, I apologize. That was Martin Luther King Jr. that said that. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice was a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. And that's a nice sentiment. And, largely it's correct. We take 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Socially, with civil rights, with, the freedoms that we have in the United States. But you know what? It doesn't just bend toward justice. Somebody has to bend it that way. As Jon Stewart said, I think. We have to bend it that way. Activists have to bend it that way. People who are out here fighting this extremism, like the extremism that Ron DeSantis has to offer. We have to bend that moral arc of the universe toward justice. If it doesn't get bent by me or by you or anybody, it doesn't get bent. Or, you know who it bends toward? Ron DeSantis. Because he's certainly out here trying to bend it. Ron DeSantis is certainly out here trying to, quote-unquote, end wokeism, which means systemic discrimination. Legally speaking, that's what it means. If you aren't out here fighting this fight, if you're not out here fighting this fight, then the moral arc will be bent by this guy right here instead. Seriously. That's the point. That's the point that I wanted to make. Anyway, let's keep listening to Ron DeSantis here.
Freedom didn't run on autopilot. They knew each generation would have a responsibility to safeguard freedom, and it's our responsibility to do so at this important juncture in our nation's history. We have a lot of work to do to ensure the country gets back on track. I ask everybody listening to please join me on this mission. Please
donate to my campaign, right?
Invest in our campaign by going to...
How did I know?
Ron.
Yeah, I'm not even... Okay.
And I look forward to the discussion.
All right. Thank you, Governor. Appreciate that.
So that was like an opening statement. Like, it wasn't even really an opening statement. It was just like a gish gallop of nonsense, of platitudes that have been repeated throughout the ages.
I guess just as a first follow-up here, thank you for putting up with these technical issues. I think we're definitely breaking new ground here. As far as I know, no major presidential candidate has ever announced their candidacy on social media this way.
Nope, never have. You mean on Twitter? No, you're correct. No presidential candidate has ever announced their candidacy on the twit before. That's brand new. So congratulations on that one. You get to announce on the twit for the first time.
Certainly in a Twitter space. So thank you for doing that. What made you want to kind of take the chance of doing it this way, as opposed to
to link himself to Elon Musk? That's simple.
Just doing it on cable news or the usual way?
Well, when COVID hit, I had to make decisions about, do you go with the crowd or do you look at the data yourself and cut against the grain? And
oh my God, come on. Everything this dude says is going to be some nonsense about him being noble and all this other garbage, isn't it? Every single thing he says is going to be about this.
I chose to do the latter. I faced huge blowback for doing that from the bureaucracy, from elites, from the media. But my view was I had to look out for the people I represented, prefer protecting their jobs over trying to safeguard my own political hide. But it was very, very lonely in a lot of those decisions. And part of the reason it was so lonely is because there was a concerted effort to try to stifle dissent. There was an official narrative about lockdowns, about closing schools, about forced masks.
No, there wasn't an official narrative. I'm sorry. There wasn't an official narrative. There was science. Science showed us that COVID was killing people, okay? Millions. You know how many millions? I think, 37 million? Is that number correct? I don't remember how many million people. COVID deaths worldwide as of May 2023. It's showing 6.8 million, okay? I must have been thinking 3.7 million or something. Anyway, 6.8 million, something to that effect. That's roughly how many people have died of COVID. And, you know, those people could very easily be saved if your ass is just a little bit more careful. If you just choose to order your groceries from a service instead of walking into the store, that simple. It's not that big of a deal. If you choose to observe your church service or whatever on Zoom instead of showing up in person, you could save lives. That's it. That's all it takes. And what is Ron DeSantis doing? Shaming people for trying to save people's lives by just doing their church service on Zoom for a little while. Just a little while is all we wanted. Hell, a month. Anything. Anything at all. And he's like, oh, there's an official narrative about a lockdown. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care what he has to say here. It's nonsense.
Asking about all these different things.
About masking, he says. Official narrative about masking.
Things that we had to navigate during COVID. And it was an orthodoxy being enforced by the major tech platforms in conjunction.
See, he's trying to make it out to be a religion for the exact same reason why evangelicals try to make out being gay to be a religion. He's using the same tactics that evangelicals use against the gay community. And that's probably intentional, because if he uses these tactics, the same ones the evangelicals use, then it ties him to the evangelicals. If he does this right, he can link himself and his ideas and his goals and his whatever to the evangelical movement that way. So he's saying, step back, listen again.
It was an orthodoxy being enforced by the...
It's an orthodoxy being enforced. The reason that evangelical nutterbutters talk about, like, orthodoxy, being gay is an orthodoxy, blah, blah, blah. The reason they say all that stuff is because it's heresy if you accept somebody who's gay. If you have a cousin or a brother or a nephew or, hell, a son that comes out as gay, it's a religion in their mind. They want you to view it as a religion. If you view it as a religion, they can convince you that you are breaking God's law by committing heresy, by accepting it, basically. And Ron DeSantis is using the same strategy with COVID, comparing it to a religion. Simply disgusting.
He had to navigate during COVID, and it was an orthodoxy being enforced by the major tech platforms in conjunction with the federal government. And if we can't have an honest debate in a free country about issues that affect hundreds of millions of people, like...
Oh, we can have a free debate and an open and honest debate about this stuff. Absolutely. But when your attorney general, or I'm sorry, not attorney general, your surgeon general is going out on air talking to Sherry Tenpenny about how strong and courageous she was for going out there and pointing out that people who get the vaccine are magnetized. When your surgeon general is doing that, that's not like a debate. That's not, the public being allowed to whatever. That's just embarrassing. That's just embarrassing. As a government official, you should not be spreading disinformation that way. That's just wrong.
Like lockdowns, then what good is the First Amendment at that point? Those are...
I'm sorry, let me step back. Listen again.
About issues that affect hundreds of millions of people, like lockdowns, then what good is the First Amendment at that point?
Well, that's the thing. You're perfectly free to go out to the town square and talk about this stuff to your heart's content. You know the movie Plandemic? It's I'm sure if you haven't heard of it, one of your family members has. Absolutely, without a doubt. Plandemic was one of the most famous and popular conspiracy theory movies out there. One of the most famous and popular. How did it get that way? It was censored from YouTube. It was censored from Twitter. It was censored from even Facebook. And the right-wing extremist ones, all of them, censored it. They say you're not allowed on our platform. Which, by the way, that's their right, as a platform. They're free to allow anybody on that they want or kick off anybody that they want. You know what Plandemic did? I covered this, by the way, on my Telltale Unfiltered channel. If you want to watch the full breakdown of the movie Plandemic, which has been censored from social media like you wouldn't believe. Oh, boy, that's a tree, isn't it? Is this tree going to hurt me? Please don't hurt me, tree. Okay, I thought it was a boss, but it was just a normal tree. Anyways. If you want to, watch the whole thing, Plandemic, but that was censored from YouTube, you can watch it on my Telltale Unfiltered YouTube channel. But you know what they did since they were so censored by YouTube, Twitter, whatever? They went church to church. They would get a group of friends together, the lodge or the veterans' home or whatever. They'd get them all together at a pizza parlor. These people that were pushing this movie. Anybody, it could be anybody. Could be your grandma liked the movie, thought it was really, really good and on point and correct, even though it was not. And she would go to the local veterans place with all of her local veterans, and she would buy 15 pizzas at Pizza Hut. And she would pop this DVD in that she got in, Pizza Hut's, in their little... TV they got in the corner, and they would all watch Plandemic together, 20 minutes. Probably get, how many veterans you get together from the VA home? Maybe 20, 30? They do the same thing with churches, You get a whole church group together to go to a Pizza Hut and do a watch party of the movie Plandemic. That's the old school way of doing it. And nobody could stop them. There was no way to stop that. It was perfectly legal. It was above board in every way. That's how they spread their disinformation. And nobody will ever be able to stop you from doing that. That is effectively the town square. going from person to person, from group to group, veterans groups and church groups and, Boy Scouts groups and whatever. Getting all these people together and having them sit down at like a pizza parlor or like a McDonald's and use their, movie playing software and hardware and everything and just watch this propaganda film. That is the town square. Nobody can stop that. They're all perfectly free to do it. You don't have a right to be on Twitter. You don't have a right to be on YouTube. I don't have a right to be on YouTube. I mean, hell, YouTube could, suddenly tomorrow decide that they like Donald Trump. They think that he's a cool guy and that they're sick of Joe Biden and anybody that has ever spoken highly of him, or hell, who has who has ever spoken negatively about Donald Trump, and ban my channel tomorrow if they wanted. And there's nothing I could do about that because that's perfectly legal. It would be a violation of their free speech, YouTube's, if somebody tried to prevent them from making decisions about who to have on their platforms. See how that works? But if I want, I can produce a documentary and take it to church groups, take it to veterans groups, take it to whoever I want. And there's nothing anybody can do to change that. So this isn't a violation of freedom of speech. This is, at best, a violation of the concept of freedom of expression, I suppose. You could call it that, maybe. But, that's just how this whole system works. Like, everybody has freedom of expression, up to and including companies like YouTube. They're perfectly free to platform whoever and whatever they want, and you can't force them to do otherwise. That's just what it is.
Those are precisely the times when we needed to have debate be robust. You should not be taking down articles that criticize those draconian policies, and yet that's exactly what happened. So it occurred to me that if that had continued, I think free speech in this country was on its way out the door. And so when
no, free speech in this country is not on its way out the door. At no point was free speech violated. Like, that's just completely made up. He just by saying that, okay, he was a constitutional attorney. Ron DeSantis wasn't he? He knows he's lying here. He knows he's lying. He can't possibly not know that he's lying with the level of education that he's using here. He knows everything that I just said. You know how I know that he knows all that? Because my only qualification is my wife is in law school and I pick up on her conversation sometimes. Okay, this dude, not only did he complete law school and pass the bar exam, but also was like a constitutional attorney in the Navy or something like that for years and years. He knows. I don't want to hear any nonsense, and he doesn't know exactly what he's talking about and exactly how he's lying.
Elon Musk stepped up to purchase Twitter. He paid a lot of money for it. And I'm sure because he's a good businessman, Elon, I'm sure you'll end up making money off it. But the bottom line is you had to put your money where your mouth is because I think you recognize that you can't have a free society unless we have the freedom to debate the most important issues that are affecting our civilization. That did not happen during COVID. The truth was censored repeatedly. And now that Twitter is in the hands of a free speech advocate, that would not be able to.
Okay, Twitter is not in the hands of a free speech advocate. I can't let that one go. Elon Musk has repeatedly shut down free speech at every turn. Every opportunity he's had, he has shut down free speech. Any time a union started to form at Elon Musk's offices or in one of his companies or whatever, he shut it down. He did union busting. He found ways to prevent them from organizing and gathering. Tons and tons and tons of union busting and free speech limiting efforts. So, complete nonsense. I'm not going to accept it.
To happen again on this Twitter platform. So I think what was done with Twitter is really significant for the future of our country. We cannot have a society in which government is colluding with major tech platforms to enforce an orthodoxy.
Okay, that's not happening. That was never happening. That's completely made up. But you know who it appeals to? The MAGA base. That's who it appeals to. It appeals to the MAGA base. And that's really all that matters right now. DeSantis will do anything to get the MAGA base on his side.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're absolutely committed to freedom of speech and level playing.
No, he's not at all. Never was. And it's a joke. In fact, it's downright offensive for Elon Musk to even imply that he's, quote unquote, committed to freedom of speech or whatever other nonsense.
Field and just a vigorous debate. And hopefully this can be a platform that brings people of divergent political views to exchange those views, and perhaps some minds will be changed one way or the other. And but it's just incredibly important, as you highlight, that the First Amendment is irrelevant if all the media and the government are operating in lockstep.
The First Amendment is irrelevant if the government and social media are operating in lockstep. Yeah, I suppose I could agree with that. If social media was censoring things that, on the government's behalf, I could agree with that. Yeah, that would be bad. That's not what's happening. Although, for what it's worth, Donald Trump did attempt to do that. Donald Trump did actually instruct Twitter to censor a tweet, and Twitter did censor a tweet on Donald Trump's behalf. So there's that. Now, Joe Biden requested Twitter follow their own terms of service, their own policy or whatever, by removing revenge porn of his son. And he was not a government official at the time either. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with what Joe Biden did by asking Twitter specifically to remove revenge porn of his son. I have no problem with that.
It makes the most important amendment, the one that was most urgently added to the Constitution, moot if you cannot have free and open debate.
If you can't have freedom of debate, yeah, I guess that's true. Has government tried to stop freedom of debate? You're still perfectly free to debate anything you want from a street corner, as you always were. No one has ever tried to stop that.
So Twitter was indeed expensive, but free speech is priceless.
Oh my God, what a ridiculous saying. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Governor, I'm going to ask some questions while we get some other kind of speakers in the queue to ask questions. I think maybe some people knew this announcement was coming because there's been no shortage of hit pieces on you in the press over the last week or two. I want to ask you about some of these accusations that are being leveled at you. Last week, the NAACP issued a travel advisory against your state, claiming that Florida is not a safe place for minorities to visit.
That's true. They did.
What do you say to those who've been advised that somehow they aren't welcome in your state?
Well, it's not that they aren't welcome in the state. See how they changed the wording on that or whatever? It's not about not being welcome. It's that Ron DeSantis and the policies that he's pushed through have put them in harm's way, directly. The people in the state of Florida are in grave danger of being censored by or affected by or hurt by the government in some real way. That's what that means. Ron DeSantis has gone out of his way to make it clear that he is not friendly to the gay community at all in any way, shape, or form.
Claiming that Florida is unsafe is a total farce. I mean, are you kidding me? You look at cities around this country, they are awash in crime. In Florida,
Yeah, he loves to say that, but New York City is the safest place I've ever lived. I don't feel unsafe here ever.
Crime rate is at a 50-year low. If you look at the top 25 cities for crime in America, Florida does not have a single one amongst the top 25. And if you look at cities like Baltimore and Chicago, you got kids more likely to get shot than to receive a first-class education. Yet I don't see the NAACP.
Okay, I don't know what they're talking about with that, but the NAACP is... God, do I really have to go down this road? DeSantis is going out of his way to lie about this stuff, to make it out as though he hasn't done anything absolutely psychotic with Florida. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, But I do want to establish the fact that Ron DeSantis has done a lot of bad stuff in Florida. All right, here's just like a short list from CNN. Take it for what you will. CNN isn't that trustworthy, and it's a short list, but he's anti-mandate, beyond reopening Florida before most other states, and generally dismissing expert guidance. Not just dismissing expert guidance, but you saw what I mean. If you saw the other parts, it may be in this one, may be in another. Joseph Ladapo, his Surgeon General, the guy that's supposed to help him through COVID, is a fan of Sherry Tenpenny and worked with her and talked to her and said she's a hero and all that junk. So it says dismissing expert guidance is not a fair assessment of what he's done. He also called lawmakers into a special session. Oh my God, please, no pop-ups. I hate pop-ups. Into a special session last year to ban any entity from schools to private businesses from requiring vaccines and threatened violators with fines. So he banned anybody from requiring vaccines. He also banned governments from enacting pandemic mitigation measures and has gone after schools that have attempted to require students to wear masks. He surrounded himself with people who pushed questionable COVID-19 remedies and eschewed prevention measures, most notably appointing Joseph Ladapo as Surgeon General. Yeah, Ladapo lied on medical research. He lied on medical research. Officially. It was a big deal. It happened not too long ago. He's anti-woke. He's been at the forefront of attacking wokeness, quote-unquote, and critical race theory, signing a new law that bans businesses and schools from teaching about white privilege. And not just that, but anything to do with like systemic bigotry or racism or systemic anything at all, he is very, very opposed to. His administration also recently rejected math textbooks from publishers, claiming some included elements of critical race theory and emotional and social learning. Math textbooks, really. I remember that one. Here's the anti-tech section. Last year, he championed a bill that goes after big tech companies for supposedly censoring Trump and other conservative voices, and allows Floridians who feel they are wronged by social media companies a path to sue for retribution. A federal judge blocked the law. Yeah, he's been breaking law after law after law with his executive orders and stuff, and they've just been shut down. Like, he keeps getting these executive orders shut down. Because that's what happens when you do something that's unconstitutional or illegal or whatever. It's shut down. But he's virtue signaling, is what it's called. Anti-protest. In response to the killing of George Floyd, while other states reviewed policing policies, George Floyd was killed by a police officer in a completely unjustified and illegal way, and there's absolutely no reason for them to do what they did to George Floyd. That's a clear-cut case of abuse. So in response to the George Floyd thing, when other states were reviewing their policies, DeSantis called for and signed a so-called anti-riot bill that opponents said targeted peaceful protesters. A court blocked that law as well. From my understanding, it basically made it legal to run over a protester with your car. Don't quote me on that. It's more complicated than that. I haven't read the bill myself. That was the interpretation that was presented to me. DeSantis has also rejected the entire concept that there's an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol and called the commemoration of January 6th this year nauseating, blaming the media for focusing too much on the effort to block counting of electoral votes. So this is him trying to get, Trump voters. Presidents have more power than just about anybody in the world, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, that's just a short list of things. Not to mention the Don't Say Gay bill. He made it a felony to tell anybody what your pronoun is or something like that in a school. I don't remember. Or to mention being gay at all to any degree, or mention like your sexual orientation at all under any circumstances. And it was just for elementary schools. But see, this is how it works. You get one wedge in the door and you expand it out. It started out as elementary schools and now it's all the way up to high schools. You can't talk about anything related to your gender identity, sexual orientation or whatever. That's how this stuff works. This is how it's always worked. So anyway, the point is, Ron DeSantis has been absolutely terrible for Florida, and it makes complete sense that somebody like the NAACP would put out a warning about not going to Florida because the things that are happening in Florida right now against, the gay community, against the black community and everything, it's really, really disturbing stuff.
About all the outrage and the carnage that's happening in those areas. So this is a political stunt. These left-wing groups have been doing.
Wait, what would they gain from that? What do you mean it's a political stunt? How are they benefiting from this? I mean, I get political stunts happen from time to time. Totally, sure. Okay. What's the NAACP getting out of warning people away from Florida? Really? What a joke.
It for many, many years. And at the end of the day, what they're doing is colluding with legacy media to try to manufacture a narrative. Now, the good news.
Colluding, okay.
Is fewer and fewer Americans are gullible enough to believe this dribble. And platforms like Twitter are there where people can debunk these lies in real time. And I would just say, as an American citizen, if you are uncritically accepting narratives spun by legacy media and left-wing groups, you're failing at your job.
So he's insulting people if they disagree with him or if they think that the NAACP or whoever is correct. He's insulting people. Great. It's a great job. Great idea.
Of being a conscientious citizen. And I think people just see right through it. And oh, by the way, have any of these travel advisories, because they've been doing this for a while, all these left-wing groups, have any of them worked? Well, we're the #1 state for net in-migration and have been every year since I've been governor.
Sure, because Florida is a beautiful state, but you being governor doesn't help that situation. It makes it worse. I mean, Ron DeSantis as governor has done everything that he could to make it clear that he is not welcoming to these types of groups. I don't know why he's even playing coy here. Like, just admit that you want to signal specifically that these groups are not welcome here. You want to signal that, not to the groups, but to the MAGA crowd, to the MAGA nutterbutters who may or may not vote for you in 2028. That's what he's doing, really.
We just capped the highest quarter for tourism in the history of the state of Florida.
Yeah, that's because of Walt Disney World, first and foremost, and the beaches. There are lots of beautiful things about Florida. You're not one of them, Ron.
And our view is we want everybody to succeed regardless of their skin color. We don't divvy up people by race. At the same time, it is worth pointing out that we have in Florida more black-owned businesses than any state in the nation.
Well, that's because there are more black people in that area, I would be willing to bet. Like, there are reasons for all of these things, and it's not because of you, Ron.
And we've also had more African Americans lead state agencies under my administration than at any time in Florida history. But with us, they're there because of merit, not because we're trying to play identity politics. And if you want to look at education, the black students in Florida perform much higher than black students in most other states. We rank #3 in 4th grade reading and #2 in.
So he's doing cherry picking activity here where he's finding the statistics that look the most favorable to him and he's showing them off when in fact he is very anti-black and anti-gay and anti-anything that the MAGA people are against. Anything. Because if he can take advantage of the MAGA people, because if he can convince the MAGA people that he is basically a more calculating Trump, he can get their vote in 2028 when Trump is done with politics, basically.
4th grade math amongst our black student population.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit pause.
And oh, by the way, the head of the NAACP lives in Florida, and a lot of their board.
Yeah, Florida's a beautiful state. It's not beautiful because your ass is there. You have nothing to do with it. In fact, you're making it worse. Just because the head of the NAACP is there, lives there or whatever, doesn't mean that it's safe right now for the black population.
The head of the NAACP lives in Florida, and a lot of their board members have put out on social media during my governorship Florida vacations where they seem to be having an awful good time.
Yeah, okay. So who knows if that's even true? Who knows how long ago that was, if it was true? The guy is setting out to twist things around and make it look as though he is a much better person, a much more enjoyable, free-loving, more moderate person than anybody on planet Earth, basically. So at this immediate moment, he's not appealing to the MAGA people. If he was appealing to the MAGA people, then he'd be talking about how the NAACP is right to be scared. He's trying to appeal to moderates now, so he's doing both. He's bouncing back and forth at the moment.